This time on Tech Retrospective, a very, very, very cool looking device that's very, very useless. Hello and welcome to Tech Retrospective. I'm Jacob, and today we're going to be taking a look at this LASER Compumate 1, an interesting little device that actually doesn't have very much going on. Let's get into it. LASER is one of many brand names once used by a holdings group from Hong Kong. The company was originally known as Video Technologies Limited, although you'd recognize them by their much later name, Vtech. Although they're known now for their many children's educational devices and being the largest producer of cordless landline phones in the world, Vtech has a long list of interesting products under its belt, its first being a 1977 Pong machine sold in the US and Europe. Vtech became quite successful by building OEM products like LCD game devices and selling the rights and branding to them to companies like Radio Shack. In 1983, they released their first computers under their LASER brand, beginning with IBM PC clones and then expanding to their very successful Apple II clone, the LASER 128. We've already done a video on one of LASER's PC clones, the LASER 486 SX3. It's a really good video, so make sure to check that video out after this one. As the home computer market began to be less viable for Vtech to compete in, they would explore many other technology fields, including becoming a major player in the emerging field of portable computers and electronics, which was not a unique idea. One of their primary competitors was Franklin, who also began by making Apple and IBM clone systems before becoming a dominant producer of electronic handheld devices, spell checkers, Bibles, and contact organizers. Today we will look at one of Vtech's first major handheld personal assistants of sorts, the LASER Compumate 1, an entry-level device combining a spell checker, calculator, and contact database in one neat computer-esque package from 1988. We picked up our unit on eBay complete in the box for just $35. You can see its nice black design with gold and red accents. The display at the top left is a one-line 20-character non-backlit affair that is surprisingly easy to read in ideal conditions, with the contrast being controlled by a wheel on the system's left side. There are no ports on any side other than the DC power in on the system's back. Some of the most interesting features of this system are found on the bottom. There you'll see the battery compartment, which takes 4 AA batteries, a reminder table for some of the system's controls, a covered slot for expanding the system's RAM, and a plastic piece covering access to a small chunk of the motherboard with 2 ROM chips. The idea was that the user would be able to install updated ROM chips to the system to add new features, but as far as I can tell, none were actually ever released. Looking at this ad from a Sears catalog of various pocket computers from LASER, Franklin, and Casio, you can see that the Compumate 1 retailed for $79.99, which seems pretty high to me. The Compumate 2, which offered a lot of additional features, was just $20 more. Another device we can compare it to is the PC-8 pocket computer sold as the lowest end offering by Radio Shack in the same year. It retailed for only $60 and offered more features than the Compumate 1, but had less user RAM with 2K versus the Compumate's 8. So for an $80 device offering only 3 functions, you would hope that each of those functions was really robust. Let's take a look at them, starting with feature 1, the spell checker. Well, it's pretty simple. You type in a word and it will compare your word to its directory of words. If the directory finds an exact match, it will say spelled correctly. If not, it will list out the words that closely match what you typed, one at a time, beginning with the closest word. The spell checker has 3 different directory modes labeled as high school, business, and college. Essentially, the lower levels only access more frequently used words, with the full directory being available in the college mode. The advantage to using smaller directories is that search time is much quicker. Next up is the calculator, accessed by pressing 2 on the virtual number pad at startup. Unfortunately, the calculator function is pretty disappointing. It's very unintuitive and lacks any advanced functions, only being able to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It has a memory function, but that too is very basic. I mean, I'd rather have a calculator than not, but even the most extremely basic calculator beats this in virtually every way, and those have actual dedicated number keys. Okay, well, maybe the phone directory is better. Let's find out. Pressing 3 at startup opens the phone directory where you have 3 options: adding a new entry, searching for a specific entry, and listing all entries starting with a specific letter. Adding an entry shows that this process is pretty annoying and unimpressive. You get 5 data points to add for each contact. The only one that's specific is entry 1, the person's name. Entries 2 through 5 are all blank entries for any piece of data like their phone number, address, or complete gibberish. Since the program can't tell what data point you are adding, it makes adding phone numbers very painful, since you have to hold control with each digit, since it doesn't switch into a number entry mode. You have to constantly switch between typing normally and holding down Control and Shift for various special characters. And if you're writing parentheses, for example, for an area code, those are located on the arrow keys, which if you forget to hold down Control while you're pressing them, delete your entire entry. The only real positive I can say is that you do get a good number of entries, with 200 being the maximum. But I doubt anyone ever reached that limit due to one critical flaw of this unit. It doesn't have an internal backup battery. If the AA batteries die or are removed, you have exactly 30 seconds to replace them before all data, including your critical phone data, is gone forever. Yikes. And that's not the only annoyance with this system. It also handles its power settings in an odd way. It has a power on key on the keyboard that doubles as a system reset key when powered on. So if you press it by accident during use, which is fairly easy, you'll lose whatever you were working on. And you also don't have an off key. Instead, to turn the system off, you have to press Control and Delete together. If you don't and leave the system idle, it'll play a shrill beep which can't be disabled after a random amount of time, and then the power will just be turned off. One thing that really confuses me about this system is that so much work was clearly put into giving it a nice keyboard. For a portable, it's really quite good. Not the best I've ever seen, that would be the Tandy 100, but it's very high quality, which would make sense if this machine had features like a word processor or basic programming, like some other portables of the day, but it doesn't. Really seems like a waste. When I look at this machine, I try to picture it with a mindset from the time, not the modern mindset spoiled by advances in technology like smartphones. But there's no way not to be disappointed by this machine. It's well built and has a great design, but its feature set is a big thumbs down. Even the higher end PC2 and PC3 were somewhat lacking in that department, which is a shame since Vtech has made some really feature-rich portables over the years, with tons of applications and external expansion options. Still, it's an interesting piece of computer history from back when portable computing power was just starting to become a commonplace commodity. It's not a very impressive device, but it is one I enjoy looking at. Now, giving such a basic device ratings is kind of silly, but we are going to do it anyways, just for fun. Usability, 3 out of 5. This rating is tricky. It gets points for having a really solid keyboard, a very easy to access battery compartment, an expansion slot, but what's the point of that when the actual uses of it are so limited? Rarity, 4 out of 5. This device is pretty darn rare. Typically you'll find at most 1 or 2 for sale on eBay at any time. I think a large part of that was that most people interested in this device chose to buy the Compumate 2 instead, since it's a superior device in almost every way that was only slightly more expensive. Price, 5 out of 5. Since these things are as obsolete as can be, there is very little demand for them. keeping prices very low if you want to pick one up for your collection. Aesthetics, 5 out of 5. I absolutely love the look of this system. It looks like a classy, high-end piece of equipment. It's decently worth picking up just as a display item. Software. Well, there was never software released for this thing, and the built-in programs are quite underwhelming, so, 0? Yeah, 0. Alright, that's all I have for you guys this time. Thanks for watching this look at an obsolete device from the 1980s. If you'd like to see more videos about interesting tech items, make sure to subscribe. Also, we have a Discord server where you can discuss tech with me. Did you ever own one of these devices? You can let me know there or in our comments down below. Of course, if you'd like to support the show financially, you can check out our Patreon. We also have a Facebook group and a Twitter. Check those out.